Alright, guys, welcome back to another episode of the Fandom Breakdown. Today, we're going to be talking about what I consider to be probably the greatest action anime ever made, Dragon Ball Z. So, I brought along Chosen One. Because,
Hello.
yeah, welcome, Chosen.
Hello, I feel welcome, thank you.
Yeah, because, I think among all the talkback guys, I think you're one of the ones who are like most qualified to be on here to talk about this with me because we got some history with anime, man.
We do, indeed.
So just to start off, do you agree that this show is probably the best action anime? Feel free to disagree with me, but I think it is, in my opinion.
Yes. Yes. And the reason I'm hesitating is because I'm trying to think what can actually hold a candle to it. I mean, I like anime. I'm deep into a few properties, but I'm not a savant, if that makes sense. So I welcome anybody to, I know this is going to be going up on the YouTube channel after, so I welcome anybody in the channel to please offer your suggestions if you believe another property should, hold that space. But as of now, my limited knowledge, yes, without question.
Yeah, I mean, it goes into basically for me. I don't think there's ever been a more influential anime in my lifetime that I've seen, because for me, like, this was the show that sort of was the gateway into anime for me, because a lot of the times, like when I would come home from school, it would basically be Dragon Ball Z is what I would put on Toonami.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And it's a crazy thing to think about it, but like, this was back in the day when you can actually like record TV. Like I used to record like, I pretty much recorded the entire Frieza saga on tape.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you remember that you could actually put a tape into your VCR, tune it to a TV channel, and actually record.
Yes.
But
on
yeah,
ours, it wasn't a simple, press record, because you didn't have that. It was almost like a hack with the cassette tape. You had to press, like, play and one other button on the far right and hold them both down, and then it would record. Oh,
bro,
my God.
listen. I was the master, man, because I would time it so I would stop the recording right before the commercial break, and I would record it right after the commercial break. So when you got a tape from me, Chosen One, or you sat down and watched one of my tapes, that thing was clean, man.
Nice.
Listen, man, we're old, man. Kids don't know the troubles we had to go through.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely.
But yeah, man, I think for me, the thing that always stood out in Dragon Ball Z that made it like one of the greatest shows was the characters. Now, we're not really gonna go into Dragon Ball in this episode because I haven't seen Dragon Ball. I know, Chosen, you've seen it.
Yes.
So I might actually take my time and watch that on its own, and we can make that like its own separate thing.
Okay.
But the thing about this show, man, is that it has one of the most diverse, funny, interesting, amazing backstory, the history between these characters, the lineage, the power levels. All of these things are amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think Goku we should probably start with Goku and then move our way down, because like I think that's a good way to kind of kick this off. I didn't see Dragon Ball, like I said, but I think within Dragon Ball Z they do a pretty good job of giving a backstory of Goku, like a quick backstory.
Yes.
This guy is very interesting because the guy was essentially sent to Earth to basically kill everybody.
Yep.
So here you have this, it's almost like a reverse Superman story where like the guy came to Earth to kill everyone. The guy fell, bumped his head, and forgot his mission. And he's taken in by this old man, and he's trained, and he's basically goes up to be like one of the greatest warriors on Earth. And he forgets completely what he was there to do. And isn't that the beginning of Dragon Ball Z, if I remember correctly? When
Yeah. But
he gets visited by Raditz, right? It was Raditz.
yes. Yep.
So right off the bat, you have probably like one of the most interesting like intros. Like, who is this guy? Like, I'm here with my family, and this guy just shows up.
Yeah. I agree with everything you said, but it's almost too light. Like how good you're saying it is. You're correct, but it's like it's I think we talked about this before, and you even mentioned it before you went into the intro that you have not seen Dragon Ball.
Right.
It is impossible, and I believe LT brought up this point first. It is impossible for you to fully appreciate how big a deal that intro of Dragon Ball Z was if you have not seen Dragon Ball first.
Damn.
It's cool that you're gonna go back and watch it, but I think you don't need me to explain this to you. It's not gonna have the same effect, because if you're seeing it with fresh eyes and the history with Goku and Piccolo, when they team up, we've talked about all the time where heroes and villains team up to fight the greater good. Spider-Man, Venom versus Carnage. This is all light stuff. This is all Tylenol. When Goku and Piccolo joined up to fight Raditz, that is hard uncut cocaine. My goodness. Okay, it's huge. Now, again, it's kind of testament to how these guys sort of crafted the story, because look at how much you enjoyed it, not knowing the history.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Multiply that by 5. That's where your mind would have been.
That's crazy to me. That's why I always say, like, man, listen, like, I don't think it's a controversial thing to say. I believe anime doesn't get enough respect, even today.
Oh no, absolutely not. Absolutely. 100% agree. Go on.
Because, like, the things that Akira Toriyama was doing back in the day, I really don't feel like there's nothing that really compares. Like, I think this guy was like the pioneer of creating like just like such a great overall story narrative, man. But anyway, going back to Goku, I really feel like this guy is like one of the most like likable characters I think I've ever seen on screen. As far as like the way that this guy, like, I mean, the guy's a family man essentially, but he never lost that edge of wanting to be a warrior. And every time that comes up, he always has that sort of like interest in his eye, and it plays into Dragon Ball Z so much, because I feel like Dragon Ball Z has really one of the best overall arcs. And believe it or not, I think Dragon Ball Z should have been kind of the end of, like, to me it should have been the end. You know, I mean, we can have another talk about like what happens after, because what happens after is pretty crazy as well. But I think in terms of like storytelling and how there's a big baddie at the end and everything kind of just resolved itself, yeah, I feel like Dragon Ball Z should have been the end. But yeah, I mean, already you start the show with a great protagonist, so there's that aspect of it.
I mean, I agree. Goku has, to your point of him being likable, it's that childlike innocence that he maintained always.
Yes, man.
Adulthood. And another thing, which is why, again, I hate to beat a dead horse, but the things that you're saying is just reinforcing the same point that I just made, where I think you mentioned him always wanting to be on edge, always curious about improving. I think that's where you were going, right? Is that what you were alluding
Yeah,
to?
yeah, pretty
So,
much. Goku, he loves a good fight. This guy loves a good fight.
right. So part of that is his Saiyan blood, right? But one of the thing that I thought that maybe you were going towards with that comment was him, because constantly it shows all throughout the series from episode one, him always wanting to improve, and that is actually something that is linked to Dragon Ball, where there was a man. I can't say it now because it's going to be a spoiler for you. But guess what? What I'll say is this, and I'll just keep it very vague. Um, his desire to always improve was instilled in him at a very young age. That's all I'll say. I'll wait until you watch it, because it is one of those things where it reinforces some points where it's like there are lessons learned as a kid that you will take all the way through your adulthood, all the way through middle age, straight to the grave. Okay, it's just, they may be few, but they're always there. Like, for example, I learned how to do a proper push-up when I was 6. Don't bring your chest all the way to the ground. What are you doing? That's a rest. You don't rest, it's always like an inch above the ground, the maximum when you go down. Then you push back up. And I carry that all the way. I did push-ups today. I still, that's just, it's just keep that in mind when you watch that. I like the point you made, and I just had to go on record with that.
No, man. Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of what makes the show good too is the history and the lineage. So going back to what you were just saying, like the backstory of Goku and his experiences and everything that makes him who he is, I think is one of the strongest parts of this. As long as as well as the people surrounding him. I mean, for God's sakes, Krillin is a linchpin of probably everything that happens in terms of like how everything ends up. Krillin is, like, I think one of the craziest things like I've ever seen. Like, it was one of the most shocking things I've ever seen. We'll talk about it later as we get to like Namek and all that stuff. But it's kind of one of those things where I even like today, like I'm speaking to you from memory, Chosen. Everything I'm saying right now, I haven't seen the show in like 15 years.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah.
And I'm pretty much remembering like all the characters and names and all this stuff. And like everything, all the main plot lines, I remember all of that shit.
Me too.
That's crazy to me. That this thing was so influential that I remember it from almost 15 years ago. But yeah, I mean, I think what also kind of separates this show is that like there isn't any other show out there that does power levels like Dragon Ball Z does power levels, man.
Hold that thought. Now, I used to think that as well, but I would love to hear your opinion on that once you have watched the 2 seasons of Demon Slayer.
I will definitely look into that, man, for sure.
That is a close second, and one could make the argument that they did it better. I'm not willing to go that far yet. But what I'm saying is, how you hear something, someone can say some wild things and you can just immediately shut it down. You can't with that show in regards to the topic you just brought up as far as power levels. Okay? It's already in the ballpark. I mean, it's already in the same zip code, and man, it's close. It's close. But yeah, I'll just leave it at that.
But yeah, I mean, even saying that, I think really this was the original show for that kind of stuff, man. Because it's over 9,000. It's a meme by this point.
Yeah.
Oh man. Yeah, so I think, do you put Dragon Ball Z as sort of like, because in my mind, like I feel like this is sort of like the best of Dragon Ball in terms of like, I haven't seen Super yet, I haven't seen any of the new stuff, but I think Dragon Ball Z was peak for me.
No, it was. and I like to classify the different sagas of Dragon Ball Z personally, but
Uh-huh.
Dragon Ball Z as a whole, you know, it's one of those things where it's like I don't need to watch GT, I don't need to watch Super to really like when I say watch it, I don't need to watch the whole thing, I guess is what I'm trying to say. In the same way that I saw 3 seconds of Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z to know that I was in, it's the same thing with GT and Super. I can watch minutes and know that I'm out. I'm just not interested. It's different, and different sometimes can be good, but this is one of the cases where, for me, it's just, you know, uh, I mean, it's one of those things where it's like I do believe it has gone on too long, and they've kind of lost their way. They've lost, um, you know, uh, that spark, in my view, that kept it fresh, and it was dwindling even with Dragon Ball Z, so I'm Z is definitely the top. That's not even close. That's a no-brainer. But yeah, that's just my opinion.
I think a lot of it too was that it really attracted me as a kid because yeah, I've always been drawing a lot, and believe it or not, like a lot of the skill sets that I've developed over time, I'm enjoying anime and understanding art and all that stuff, came from Dragon Ball Z because like just like seeing how ripped these guys were, man. I learned a lot of like how to do like anatomy of guys and drawing and all this stuff, and like I got pretty damn good at it, man. Like back in the day.
Nice.
Yeah, man.
May have to call on you for something after we finish. We'll talk off air. Okay, that's fine.
Yeah, we'll talk. But yeah, man. Do you remember? Because I remember back in school. This is like in the late, like this is like the early 2000s, man. Like there was this thing where like if you would like Google search stuff, well, there wasn't Google back then, but you would like you would go on the internet.
Yep.
There was always that one kid at school who had like a folder of printed out Dragon Ball Z and like artwork.
Oh yeah.
Like, did that happen where you were? Because I remember it was a thing for me in school, and I would always be like, "Hey, let me see that art," and you would go on there and look at this crazy image of like Goku and Gotenks and Gohan all like. There's this one picture I remember where they were all firing at the same time, and I'm like, God damn, this artwork is outstanding.
Oh yeah. The thing is that you say it printed. I go a step further. There was someone in my school who drew them freehand. I mean,
oh yeah.
This guy was, and everyone was Googling over that, and then it's like, yeah, 100%.
I was that guy. I was that same guy.
Oh, nice. Nice. And I remember he even did a piece. I remember this to this day, man. This guy did a piece of the Street Fighter characters in Dragon Ball Z art.
That sounds dope.
I had never seen this guy. He actually did like a mock storyboard. And I think Akuma was sort of, how Vegeta does that power-up fly, where he's, flying through the sky, x-axis, going straight on, and then he's got sort of the power ripples, and he did that with it was Ryu standing on a ledge, standing on like sort of a pillar, and he was sensing something. Then he looked, and then he did that little slow that frame by frame zoom in on the person flying, and it was Akuma. And I remember that to this day. That art was so good, man. I wish I could find that guy.
Damn, I wonder if he's still drawing.
But yeah, I don't, man. See, that's the thing about art. I don't think guys ever quit. You can tell me I don't really draw. I just write. But I hope he, because that man was talented, and that's something I don't get from you guys. The guys that draw, like yourself and him, and my brother does some drawing. Like, I don't know how you guys do. Your brain's just, I could never draw. That's just not
I think this is just my theory. I think the thing about drawing is that like if you start at a very young age, it develops very quickly.
Okay.
And I remember like I started drawing when I was like 7 or 8. I was drawing, believe it or not. I would watch TV and I would draw Bob Ross paintings with crayons back in the day.
Nice.
And that kind of sort of I mean, I could be wrong. I don't know if that's, what caused it, but I know, talking to other people, that starting at a young age is something that kind of... I believe that anyone can draw. It's just a matter of time investment. You have to invest a lot of time. But yeah, getting back to Dragon Ball Z. What went down in this series, I think, was probably some of my most favorite, like... Let's just talk about the action, because the way that the action goes down in Dragon Ball Z, I think it's probably like some of the best choreographed action, because Akira Toriyama, he did a very smart thing where he made the battles, he established the stakes of the battles, and then he sort of made it so that the characters are pretty much hand-to-hand fighting, but he added the element of using powers and flying in a way that I think was very, very smart, and it never really got to the point where I felt like this is ridiculous. It always kind of felt like these two guys, he set the rules, they can fly, they can use power-ups, and the action choreography in some of these fights is absolutely outstanding.
Agreed. And I don't know if you have any information on this. I would love to know, that choreography that you allude to, did that just come from his memory? Like, how did he do that? I've never seen like a documentary on, how he was able to, put those scenes together, know where to put the camera to, get certain shots and evoke a feeling. I don't know how. I mean, some of that just is sort of standard mill, directing talent, but I don't know, man. It's like, but some of that is like, you have to have some kind of experience with martial arts, and then on top of that, again, I think all of this just goes to what you said and what I've said in past discussions, that yeah, this man is a genius.
Oh, for sure. Like, just look at the character designs that this guy comes up with.
Yeah.
Trunks,
Yeah.
do you remember when Trunks showed up? Trunks was one of the greatest. Like, this guy was everywhere. Everyone was drawing Trunks when Trunks came out. And this is post Dragon Ball Z. But we're just talking character design. Trunks is one of the... Listen, that guy is one of the coolest characters I've ever seen in my life. Do you remember that image of Trunks with the sword? He's sitting down. He's got the jacket on.
Sitting down.
Yeah, he's he's sitting down, and he's got his sword, and he's like looking at you. And there's a picture of Trunks. I gotta see if I can pull that up. I'll put it in the video after I edit it. But
okay.
Good God, man. And Frieza. Listen,
You're skipping it.
I know I'm kind of going all over the place, but let me dial it back, because I get excited talking about this stuff, man. But let's go back to our character talk for a bit, because I think we gotta talk about Vegeta. We have to talk about Vegeta. I think
Brilliant making him short. Brilliant. That's actually a big deal, by the way.
Oh no, yeah, Vegeta is pivotal. The moment I realized that this show was on another level was when Goku let Vegeta live. This guy came to Earth to basically kill everybody. The guy was about to die. Krillin picks up a sword, about to kill the guy. And Goku says, no. We gotta show this guy that we're better than he is.
Yep.
And by doing that, as a young boy, watching that as a young kid, it put that idea in my mind, like, man, sometimes the most powerful allies you can ever have are your enemies.
Oh yeah. 100%. I mean, they did that with Piccolo. I mean, again, just to rewind a little bit.
Yeah.
Goku and Piccolo teaming up, big move. An even bigger move than that after. I mean, you think the big move is done, right? But even a bigger move after that, after Raditz kills Goku. Infinity's Limit, your greatest enemy trains your son.
That's wild.
Do you know how it's insane? And one of the things, I mean, that it's like one of the things, like, they did it here and there, but I wish they would have kept it going. Well, they did in a way, but one of the things that they said was, I remember when Goku was training with King Kai.
Hmm.
You know, Goku, after the whole training was done, you know, Goku was, you know, he was looking at his new uniform, and he didn't notice that King Kai's symbol was on the back and his first master symbol was on the front, sort of breast pocket area, right?
Mm.
One of the things I loved is that, King Kai may have been your trainer in your later martial arts career, but you always represent your first master, which is that Turtle House, right?
Respect.
Same thing. Yes, same thing with Piccolo and Gohan. I love the fact that Gohan's uniform, when they were fighting Vegeta and Nappa, was fashioned after Piccolo's camp.
Yes, I remember now.
It's huge,
Man, you are unlocking
Huge.
memories in my head, man. I forgot about that.
It's a huge thing, man. And for Goku to come back after most of the Z fighters are dead, and it's only Krillin and Gohan left, and he sees Gohan in the uniform of his enemy. It's a, well, enemy turned ally now, but it's like, it's huge, man. It's a big deal that these guys who were at each other's throats, mortal enemies, they were able to. It's one thing to put your differences aside. Like I said, we brought up the Spider-Man Venom thing, right? And after the threat of carnage was, you know, dealt with, I mean, they didn't go back to, at each other's throats again, but
They weren't best buddies.
they weren't best buddies. They weren't. It's like, we did what we had to do. I don't even really want to see you anymore. Piccolo kind of became part of the group, part of the, I mean, they, through that struggle, they realized that, look, man, this thing is bigger than us, and we can't afford to go the route of, yeah, we teamed up this one time, let's just go our separate ways. We can't afford to do that anymore. Not only do we have to coexist, we can't pretend to coexist. We gotta be on the same page, And maybe at first it was difficult, but you can tell. I mean, it was when, this is why I say it was such a big deal, because again, I know I'm skipping around now, but when Goku was in that capsule on the way to Namek, and he has that conference call with King Kai, and King Kai tells him that Yamcha, Tien, Chaozu, and Piccolo are there. And then Piccolo has the conversation with Goku on his way to Namek. And what he said to Goku was like, between you, me, Krillin, and Gohan, we're gonna take this guy down. They're on the same team. This isn't a forced team up, man. And it's such a big deal. It's a huge deal. It's beautiful. It's beautiful how that sort of common enemy, common goal, it's about safety now, because we've just found out the universe is way bigger than us.
Yes.
We're on the same team. We're on the same team now, man. And I got your back fully. I got your back like I'm your brother, even though I'm not. So it's huge. It's huge, man.
No, that's a very good point, because I think one of the strengths of this show was the expansion. The fact that, like, they realize that there are threats out there, intergalactic threats out there, that are way more powerful than they are. Just knowing that, that's sort of a, it almost, this is kind of crazy, but it kind of reminds me of Watchmen in a way, because remember how in Watchmen, how the way that, Ozymandias releases that fake alien, it kind of brought humanity together. So it's kind of like that in a way. It's like, damn, there's this guy out there named Frieza, and this guy is the most powerful being, this crazy alien. It's like the most powerful being in the universe. And if we don't stop this guy, it's gonna come to Earth. So, yeah, man, that was a great point that you brought up with that.
Yeah.
But yeah, like you were saying, I think Piccolo for me has always been like sort of the backbone of the team, because like I really liked the way that Piccolo sort of like grounded Gohan, and sort of like he's sort of the guy that was very level-headed all the time in battles, Like he kind of knew what was going on. Like we're jumping around because you know we're not really gonna go through the entire bit by bit. We don't have the time. It'll be like watching the actual like ending of Dragon Ball Z. You'll be here forever. But when those guys were on Namek and they were battling Frieza, and the way that Piccolo was talking to Gohan after, you know, they were fighting Frieza, it actually scared the shit out of me. Because he basically was telling Gohan, listen man, this guy may look skinny, but this guy is on a whole different level, and we gotta make sure that we keep our heads level here, because this guy is gonna be crazy to fight.
Yeah, I mean, you can see that level-headedness. I mean, yes, 100%. In that, I remember that now that you bring that up. But even in the Saiyan saga, when Nappa and Vegeta were fighting the team, you know, after Nappa had taken out everybody, you can tell like he's the one that came up with the plan to grab his tail, etc. It didn't work, but I mean, it was a pretty good plan based on the information he had. He also is the one who's monologuing in his mind about, you know, the situation, and he's taking note of how Nappa is taking orders from Vegeta, and I believe the line he said to himself was, the smaller Saiyan must be even stronger. And I
remember that. Yes.
He's a thinker. He's a thinker, 100%. And I think LT also brought up this point when we talked about it initially, where it's like, you know what? Had a few things. I don't know how you think, but I honestly believe, had a few things gone differently, they could have at least gotten past Nappa. They could have gotten past him. It's more like 40%. Had a few things gone differently. I don't know what would have happened if God, what's this guy's name? God. The guy that was dating Bulma, what's his name?
Jesus, I'm blanking on his name too. The guy who's he's got that famous meme. He's always in the ground.
Yamcha? No. Is that Yamcha?
I think it's Yamcha.
Yeah, Yamcha. Oh God. Okay, I don't know what would have happened if Yamcha had not died early on in the episode, because if you remember, they almost got Nappa with Tien's move.
Yes. I remember that.
They almost got him. Okay?
Yes.
So now we know this isn't even conjecture. It's not. They would never have gotten past Vegeta. None of them. So we know that.
Yeah. No way.
But Nappa, man, again, it may have been a David versus Goliath match, but man, they had a chance. They had a good chance. And talking about power levels from where they were to, you know, where they were when Raditz showed up, and then where they were when the Saiyan fight happened with Nappa and Vegeta, talk about a huge level of improvement, because according to Nappa, each of those Cybermen was as strong as Raditz. So, yeah, respect to all of them. I mean, again, it's just my belief. I think had a few things gone differently, I think they could have gotten Nappa. Again, the odds are more in Nappa's favor, but it's not. There could have been an upset there, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that, you know, I like about this show too is that, like, the characters are done in such a way that everyone sort of knows their own strengths and weaknesses and has their own sort of idea of, okay, I know how strong this guy is versus this guy. And they're very clever about how they fight, and they're very strategic about how they fight. I really sort of enjoy that final battle between Goku and Vegeta, because, like I said, among, you know, that whole message of at the end when he's kind of like lets him live, I think the first time I've ever noticed this happen in a show where, like, Vegeta and Goku go off somewhere completely far away from everybody else, just to make sure they don't kill anybody.
Well, that was Goku's concern. Vegeta didn't care, but he obliged him. It's
yeah, but I think that's true. But I think the fact that Goku knew that this shit was gonna get crazy,
yeah,
it kind of planted that seed in your mind as a kid, like, oh damn.
Yeah.
Then these are two warriors, and you know the fact that Vegeta actually like was like, okay, I'm gonna honor that code. Let's go ahead and let's do this. Let's do this.
Mm-hmm.
So it was kind of like a respect between warriors kind of thing, and I think that respect aspect kind of like leads to everything in this show. And a lot of the messages that you get, you know, it's all like very subliminal kind of stuff, because you're not really, if you kind of like, you know, as a kid you don't really notice it, but as an adult, now that I'm thinking about it, it's like, damn, this show had some things to say about like violence and action and your enemies and friends and family and everything, man.
Yep, 100%.
And family's a big part of it. But damn, I think we've talked about you know, a little bit of Vegeta and Raditz and all these characters, but I think we should probably move on to Namek, because I think Namek for me is probably like one of my favorite sections of any show. And I really enjoyed sort of that transition to space and a new planet and all this stuff, because what went down in Namek was crazy, man.
Yes. Like for me, I think I mentioned this to you in the past, the Saiyan Saga is my favorite. Namek, you know, it was cool, first half of it anyway, and I think I mentioned this to you as well. The animation company, I believe, had changed. So there was a point, the last traditional animation production episode was, I believe, when Goku faced off against Berta and Jace from the Ginyu Squad. That was the last one. And then, I don't know, if you watched Toonami, you know this already, they kept resetting the episodes after. They wouldn't go to the next episode, they would go back to the beginning. And they did that for like, I don't know how long. It felt like years. But then when we finally started to get new episodes, the animation had changed, the voices had changed, and for me, I didn't enjoy it as much.
No, it's true, because I even as a kid I noticed this, because I remember I'm like, why does one episode look like rubbish and another episode looks so much better? I'm like, there's clearly more than one artist working on this.
I think it had something to do, obviously, you know, it's rampant now in today's day and age, where, you know, companies are being bought and, you know, it's affecting everything. I believe currently now with Dragon Ball Z, I think it's Funimation or some other company that does the voices, but basically it's like, you know, for me, when it comes to anime in general, I know we're talking about Dragon Ball Z, but when it comes to anime in general, man, you gotta be careful with, it's like everything is a well-oiled machine. You can't have anything that's out of order for me, because I know I mentioned Demon Slayer early on. I cannot watch the English dub version of Demon Slayer. I can't.
Oof.
I cannot do it. I watched the sub all the way through season 1. In between season 1 and season 2, there's a movie that has some crucial events, and this movie was actually playing at an Alamo house near my house. I could walk there, it was that close, and you know I did. Bought a ticket, sat down. 3 minutes into it, I got up and I left.
Ooh.
Because I can't. It's everything has to. For me, maybe this is just me, and maybe I'm just messed up. The voices must be on point. If you're gonna dub this English version, your English voices and translations need to be on point, because the Ocean dub of Dragon Ball Z is where it's at. That is it. And this is not I am not a victim of imprinting. There are things where I can come midway, watch what I see currently, watch where it's at in the future, go back and watch where it began, and I can pick which one's the best. And it's the different for each property. So it's not one of those situations where I'm sticking with what I saw first.
I know myself well enough to know that's not the case. If you listen to the Ocean dub of Dragon Ball Z, then you listen to the Funimation dub of Dragon Ball Z, watch the same scenes. They've got examples on YouTube.
Wait a minute, was it okay? So what was the one that was on Toonami? That was Funimation.
That was originally Ocean dub, but then it switched to Funimation. So it all depends on when you've come in. But
did the voices change? Was there like a different Goku? Because I just know the Goku from the old days, man.
Yeah, the voices did change. It did. And if everything's familiar to you now, then chances are maybe you didn't watch. Man, I'm hesitate to say this because you had to have seen the Ocean dub if you were watching it in the 2000s. So you should be aware of this, but it's weird. But again, like I said, when this is done, go on YouTube, take a few minutes, and watch. Just type in DBZ dub comparisons. And you because
it's interesting you mentioned this because a big part of what people were saying back in the day around school and stuff, where people were saying like, listen, man, like the English version is one thing, but to watch that show in Japanese, I heard that like people were saying like the Japanese version was like Goku was cursing and this and that, and I was like, damn.
Yeah, you also have to be careful with if you're gonna do subtitles. See, this way, it's almost like it's sort of a multi sort of. You got to be careful because there are a lot of things to consider. Because even watch now I know this. I didn't know this before, and it's something that I recently sort of came across where it's like, you know, if you're gonna go subs, you also have to be careful with the subs because some companies do a different translation. And that matters. And I noticed that first with Death Note, but I thought it was a one-off.
Huh?
But no, it's like Demon Slayer. It's got 3 different ones. You know, listen. I've said this so many times. It may be a small thing, but it's a big thing. Okay, the smallest things make all the difference in terms of personal enjoyment. And I don't think I'm speaking just for me. I don't think I am. Because there are a lot of times where some people can say that they like something, but they can't put into words why. And I believe the why is a combination of these small things that people think are throwaways.
No, you're 100% right. You're 100% right. I agree with that. The devil is in the details, man, as they say.
Yeah. I just think it's all important. The music, what characters say. You know, like I said, there's a reason why I got up 3 minutes into that movie. And don't get me wrong, I watched the movie properly in the sub, and I loved it. You know, I loved it. I loved every second of it. I loved every line. But the lines that were in the English dub, it's like, my goodness, it's the same movie, but it's like it's a whole different movie. It's weird, man. So I don't know. I know this is way off topic, but
that's fine, man. It all ties in. It all ties in at the end of the day.
Yeah, it's just, you know, I think all of these things were carefully put in place by the maestros, by the creators, and they understand its importance. So when you mess with even one thing, it can throw everything off. That's just my view.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. But yeah, so I think here's a good jumping off point that we should probably just talk about a bit of more of the lead up, because one of the things that I liked about Dragon Ball Z was the lead up to battles was so good, and the pacing was so good. Guys out there were complaining a lot about pacing in Dragon Ball Z, but I think that's sort of for me at least, I never really had an issue with that, because I felt like every episode was kind of leading up to something else, and the build up of it was kind of a big part of it. And the training that Goku did with King Kai, I think is probably like one of my favorite segments of Dragon Ball Z. And I really love that whole segment. And it's funny because one of the funniest things I've ever seen was basically after his training is completed and King Kai is telling him about Frieza, Goku's reaction to basically what he just said was Frieza is probably gonna be the most ridiculous foe you could ever face, Goku. His reaction was like, "Oh, I can't wait." And King Kai was losing his mind because this guy has no idea what was ahead of him. He's got no idea.
He was like, in context, he was losing his mind because he didn't know he was a Saiyan. He didn't reveal that to him until after he told the story.
That's a good point.
And
that's a good point, yeah.
That is, see, this is why I say everything makes sense. It's not just, people talking, because even King Kai, he may have been lost and confused when he was excited to fight such a foe like that. But when he told him he was a Saiyan, it clicks now. It's in your blood. And he explained that to him. He explained that desire to fight is like a sixth sense in pure blood Saiyans. And this is one of the things that they don't go into, but you can come to conclusions and you can make assumptions, because that's not in Gohan. That's not in Trunks. That's not in Goten. And that could be because they are half-breeds.
Yeah, mixed blood, yeah.
Yeah, so again, that's not something they explain through any kind of conversation, but that's just something that, is 1 + 1 = 2 as a viewer, but I do find it interesting that the potency of that Saiyan blood and that desire to fight does not dwindle as the Saiyan blood becomes less pure, at least with mixing with Earthlings, because there's something special about the Earthling Z fighters, because that ability to sense individuals without the need of a scouter, that's not a Saiyan trait, that's an Earth trait. So maybe we know the value of having Saiyan blood, we know that, but maybe there's almost like a hidden multiplier value in human blood, because Gohan transcended his father easily. I don't know. Maybe I'm thinking too much into it, but the thing is, it's the fact that you are able to speculate and you have some enjoyment about speculating about these things, just as a testament to, how good the story was crafted, at least in the beginning. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, that's an interesting. Like, I never even really thought about that, because it's almost as if you gain more power mixing with other races, but at the same time you kind of dilute a little bit of your bloodline, and it becomes something completely different, that's kind of an interesting concept when you think about it, like an alien race mixed with a human race becoming that's interesting, man.
We don't know if that would happen with any other race, but we just know that we just have the small sample size of Saiyan and human mixing. And another thing is the Super Saiyan. You had to break your back to become a Super Saiyan. You had to train.
Oh man, this is the whole. We're gonna talk about the Super Saiyan thing.
Right. I agree with you, but just staying with the topic of blood and hereditary and genes.
Yeah.
It's a lot easier to become a Super Saiyan if your father was one, and he had achieved that level before you were conceived, because it came to Goten like nothing. Gohan had to break his back. Goku had to break his back. Vegeta had to break his back. Trunks became a Super Saiyan at the flip of a switch. So did Goten. That's because, in my view and how I perceived it, their fathers were Super Saiyans before they were conceived. That's just me. I know it's speculation, but I think the overwhelming evidence sort of points to that direction.
Yeah, no, I thought that whole like small segment that they did when they were showing the past, and how like there was this one great warrior became a Super Saiyan and all that stuff. I think that was all done extremely well, because the foreshadowing of that was incredible, because the payoff is ridiculous at the end. But yeah, man, So I know that you know, for you, the battle and all that stuff that happened on Namek wasn't your favorite part, but I think for me, in my mind, I remember that the most as far as like just what went down on there. I mean, pretty much. I mean, everything leading. It was sort of interesting because it was like leading up to the final battle. You know, like kind of like when you're watching like a sport event and there's like battles before the main event. Like if you're watching boxing or something, there's like battles before the main event. That's kind of what it felt like for me. Like the whole situation with the Ginyu Force and how Frieza had his own like private army and all that stuff. That stuff was so interesting, man.
If I could be honest, like you said, the leading up to the final event for me was more satisfying, if that makes sense.
No, I can see that, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. The team up with Vegeta, evading Frieza, hiding here, hiding there. You know it's just two of you in Bulma versus the entire world of Namek. So you have to be careful when you pick and choose your battles because you've got people out there like Zarbon, Dodoria. Yes, it's the build up for me was as good as the Saiyan Saga. Like I say, that first half of Namek I put on par with the Saiyan Saga. Saiyan Saga for me is 10 out of 10. And not only 10 out of 10 perfect, it's 10 out of 10 flawless. Perfect is you can mess up and get redemption points later to still get that 10 out of 10. Flawless is you made no mistakes. I don't know what the mistake was in the Saiyan Saga leading up to Nappa and Vegeta. What can you point to as a mistake? You mentioned the pacing. That's the first time I've heard anybody complain about the pacing of the Saiyan Saga. I don't know I don't know if anyone gave you details of their beefs, but I for me was the cream of the crop in terms of Dragon Ball Z. That first season and a half.
Listen, man, that was strong. This is why I like having these fandom breakdowns because we only talk about the strongest shit, man. Like I would never choose a topic that's something that I wouldn't be like, man, we can talk about this shit for hours, man. Yeah, man, like listen, man. I just really sort of like I enjoyed almost every aspect of that whole sequence. Like even like when Goku was traveling to Namek, that whole like subplot of the training sequence of when he was on that little capsule ship or whatever it was. Even that was good. Like the part when he accidentally turns it up to 100.
Yep.
They spent like 2 episodes. This guy was in crushing gravity, trying to do 1 push-up. And it's like, it all makes sense when you think about it because Frieza's planet is 100 times normal Earth gravity.
Well, so, I don't know if that was what was said. I don't know. I
believe it was. I believe they said somewhere along the lines that the planet he's from, the gravity is so intense. That's why he has his power.
Huh.
Something along that lines. Yeah, like it's kind of like a Superman situation where like, you know, he's so like, and on this planet he's just like a normal being, but anywhere else he goes, he's just like, it's like, damn.
Interesting. I thought he simply wanted the gravity machine because King Kai was, you know, when he first got to King Kai's planet, you know, he had to adjust to that gravity and he wanted to imitate that again to improve his strength. I thought that's what it was. I didn't know if they ever went into, I don't know, I missed, like I said, I must have missed that. I don't remember them going into Frieza's planet. Okay, I gotta go look at that. Interesting.
Well, it could be. I mean, I'm talking from like 15 years ago, so maybe, you know, it could be a bit foggy in my brain, but that's what I remember from back in the day.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, well, again, I agree with you. The whole 100 times Earth gravity. Again, when you're talking about tracking these guys, you remember Goku going Super Saiyan 4 against Vegeta and his body almost exploding because of the pain. He trains halfway to Namek. He has some sort of system malfunction that forces him to go outside and fix the satellite, and he does a Kaioken times 20 and he's able to handle it. It's one of those things where, again, numbers matter, details matter, and you can follow the progression. You're like, damn, this guy can do it times 20 now. It's a small thing, but it's a big thing. And they expect you to pay attention. They're not gonna handhold you, you know what I mean? So back to your point about 100 times Earth's gravity and him making that mistake, but after he had fixed it, he made the conscious decision that, hey, I need to train in 100 times Earth's gravity. And you're like, what? It's like, what? Are you crazy? So after all of that, he gets used to 100 times. So you're like, damn, this guy has trained his butt off. No way is Vegeta. It's like you didn't need someone in some sort of line of dialogue to tell you that Vegeta can't step to the sky by now. You can't. It's like, it's common sense. 100 times normal gravity, and he got used to it. All that training. So you're wondering what this guy can do. So to compound that level of inquiry, when Vegeta goes into the legend of the Super Saiyan, when Goku arrives, they're like, oh.
Listen, man.
Okay.
When
now we're on something. Go ahead.
Oh, I just wanted to say, when Goku finally makes it to Namek, that is one of my favorite sequences probably of all time, because everyone is beat up, tired, losing. Spirit is basically broken amongst all the team members fighting these guys. And then when that pot arrives and Goku comes out, the feeling I got seeing that, and the emotions that I felt seeing that, and you could feel it, like, this guy is here. And it's just like, things are about to pop off. And I don't think there's any show that I've ever felt like that before. And it's all because of what we said, the build up. It all pays off. How did you feel when Goku arrived?
Pretty much what you said. It's like, it's like, how can you say this? Because I don't know if you were aware, but I knew that Vegeta was eventually going to team up with him. Like, I knew that before it actually happened. In my mind, I was wondering how that was going to happen, because even at the intro of Dragon Ball Z, like, that later on Goku has a team, Vegeta's part of it, Trunks, you don't know how that's going to happen, but you can see how it started to form in that later sort of act of when Goku shows up. Like, okay, this is how they team up, this is how it's going to happen. So, sigh of relief, to answer your question, when he lands. Intrigue level is huge, because you're wondering, again, it's almost beat for beat for the Saiyan saga, where you have this big muscly guy beating up everybody,
right,
with Raditz, but here it's Raccoon, and you're like, damn, I wonder what this guy can do to is he going to be able to step to these guys? And when you see him bring Raccoon to his knees with just one hit, you're like, this guy didn't even power up. You're like, what is happening here? And then when you see Jason Berta sort of go square off against him, and on top of that, Vegeta's inner monologue, because he cannot believe what he has seen. It's like, how could he be that fast? It's like he didn't even move. And when you associate that with gravity, 100 times normal gravity of Earth, you're like, I see. How strong is this guy? And Vegeta was at his mercy. At the end of that whole thing, he knew, there's no way I can step to this guy. As of now, I'm at his mercy. And when he spoke of the whole Super Saiyan legend and how it came to be, and how the first Super Saiyan was not in control of his power, and that's how he sort of killed himself, because he was too primitive to control it. He took note that Goku was in full control, and that his bloodline, specifically him being the Prince of Saiyans, Vegeta,
he should be able to attain that power as well. So at the end of that whole exchange,
That's key right there, what you just said.
Yeah, at the end of that whole exchange, and again, this is the last episode before they keep resetting everything back in the day. They would never go to the next episode. At the end of that whole exchange, Vegeta point blank said, I am at his mercy until I reach that level. He is the strongest soldier in the universe. And you could hear it in his voice. The guy was embarrassed because technically, this is a third-class Saiyan. I mean, these are the weaklings. And those kinds of stories are also my favorite. The ones where the people that no one expects anything of rises and goes to the top. We're talking Gattaca, right? We're talking, there's a little bit of everything in it. And that's why I think it made such an impact, because you can relate.
I think like the problem with Vegeta is that like he lets his ego get the best of him, and I think Goku has no ego.
Mm-hmm.
Goku's out here just trying to protect his family and fight and just be like a noble warrior, and I think that's the thing that Vegeta always just kind of misses in his mind, because he's born with that sort of like privilege, royal blood in him, and he's sort of like, oh, I'm better than everyone. He has that sort of in him already. And when you have that sort of bias in your brain, you tend to let the underdog overcome you because you underestimate them every time.
100%.
But yeah, so the interesting thing about when Goku arrives, I think, I liked how Frieza kind of just could sense him. Like the moment he showed up, Frieza was kind of like, huh, that's interesting. That's such a power I haven't sensed before.
Wait,
and
Frieza?
Yeah, isn't that what went down? If I'm not mistaken, I believe Frieza sensed him when he arrived.
Man, I have to go back and watch it because no. That I don't know if that's correct. Frieza never had that ability. Frieza never had the ability to sense other individuals. Here's the monologue that now again, I could be wrong, but this is what I remember when Goku touched down. When Goku touched down, he did an immediate sense. He flew up in the sky and he sensed Frieza and he said, okay, there's a big fish over there. Then
right.
Then he picked up Captain Ginyu and he said, okay, there's number 2, there's the second strongest.
Right.
He was trying to search and find Gohan and Krillin because he couldn't, because their power levels were so low, they were about to pretty much die and fade. I don't remember Frieza sensing anyone at any time.
I might be getting it mixed up with Goku then, because I remember there was a scene where like someone was sensing power levels. I think I might have gotten mixed up with Goku then.
I just, the reason why Frieza and see, I was wanting to call Frieza her. I don't know if you went through that as well. Like you were thinking Frieza was a girl for
I could see that.
Everyone who in my neighborhood who watched Dragon Ball, we always made that mistake. But yeah, the reason why Frieza and his men were so lost for so long was because Vegeta had destroyed all their scouters, if you remember. So they couldn't even find.
Yes, you're right. Yeah.
They couldn't even find the Namek villages, let alone find the Dragon Balls. But when Captain Ginyu came, he brought extra scouters, So I don't know. I just don't think I don't know. But again, and this goes back to speculation where we've mentioned that ability to sense other people is an Earthborn, not Saiyan skill. But the thing about the Saiyans, which again you can go based off of evidence, is that these guys are like sponges. They can pick up on different abilities. And you notice that not only with the sensing ability, but you notice that when Goku goes to that planet to learn the instant transmission. You notice that when he obviously picks up on Kaioken. I just, again, the Saiyans, I believe, again, this is all speculation, none of it is verified, but I think they have that ability to soak up unique abilities that are specifically designated to certain races. I just think there's been a lot of evidence of that.
No, it's an interesting theory, man. I never really noticed that myself as watching it, but it's an interesting point you bring up. All right, I think we should talk about the elephants in the room. What I consider to be probably like
Mr. Popo.
listen, man. Well, I can't. I might get banned off you to talk about Mr. Popo.
I don't know why should I talk?
That's listen, man. That character was unbelievable. But yeah, I mean, like, I think we should talk about Frieza, because to me, Frieza was probably like one of the. I think in my mind, he might be the greatest villain I've seen in like an anime. Like, I'm kind of like you, but like, you know, I dip in and out of different animes and stuff like that. But I think as far as like, you know, an all-powerful villain that's gonna end DBZ, I think Frieza measures up as like this guy's pure evil.
Definitely in the conversation. I'd have to think about that one, They're quite a pure intimidation factor. Again, I think you're onto something, but in my head, I'm thinking of different villains.
This show has some strong villains, man.
Yeah. I have to think about that one, but yeah, I get where you're coming from.
Well, the thing for me that solidified him was that there was a part in this show where Frieza breathes. He blows out a little bit of breath and he kills a guy.
Oh yeah.
How do you breathe on someone and kill them?
Oh yeah, man. I get you. Yeah, that was crazy. But I remember there was one where I believe one of his subordinates had questioned him, and he took his advice. He told him he was right, but then he looked back and he said, "So and so, did you just try and like correct me and whatever?" And the guy shook his head, and all you see is just a blast of light. And then Frieza says, "Oh, it's too bad then. You just blasted into another dimension for no reason at all." It's just
Jesus.
Just the way that this guy just evaporated from that sort of blast. It's like, oh, okay, this guy is not like, you knew he wasn't to be messed with, but it's one thing hearing it, but then seeing it as well. That for me was more impactful than the breath that you spoke of. The breath was big.
Well, it was that, but I think the major one was that flashback of Bardock and seeing the whole army that Goku's father was leading, and that was a big one for me.
Interesting.
Because see, Dragon Ball Z is such a great show because it showed the history, man. This guy killed your father. He killed everybody. And that flashback was so good because it gave you the context to know that, listen, Goku literally has blood in the game. Because this man was trying to kill your lineage.
Yeah. I always found that interesting, We're talking about, you've heard talent skips a generation, right? Because Goku's father, even Vegeta acknowledged this. Goku's father was a brilliant scientist. I'm not so sure Goku could even read or write. And then look at his son. His son is nothing but books about those books. It's just an interesting thing. It just popped into my head. It's a bit of a side comment, but yeah, because but Bardock, he invented the synthetic moon that you can produce. And I think when he was fighting Vegeta on Earth, he was telling him how ironic that your father's creation is going to be your undoing before he did that, right? It's just, again, like you said, it's things come full circle. Story points are carefully weaved together, and I just give the show props.
Yeah, man. Most definitely. So, I want to talk about the final battle because the way that they portrayed the final battle in this with Frieza, it'll probably go down in history for me. I really liked the way that they had different forms for Frieza.
Yeah.
I know a lot of guys out there have, you know, their qualms about this, but this guy, like, did you see the way that this guy looked when he transformed into his second phase?
Yeah, that was scary.
This guy looked like an alien. Like his head got long and everything. Like, listen, man, Akira Toriyama, he'll probably never listen to this, but I just want to say, like, this guy's, he's pulling things from like some of the best, like there's so much stuff in this that's like pulled from other things, but used in an interesting way. Like the creative, like, talent this guy has in his head and what he comes up with is some of the crazy. Like the villain design in Dragon Ball Z is unmatched.
Yep. Yep.
Like, look at Frieza's design. Look at Cell. Look at Cell.
Oh yeah.
Like, say what you want about that Cell Saga, but god, that's a crazy looking villain.
Yep. Agreed. And I know you can appreciate it more from an artistic standpoint. So I hear what you're saying 100%. I agree. Yes. I got it.
Yeah, man. This stuff means a lot to me, man. Like, especially for someone who's young and impressionable, watching all this stuff, it's like, man, these guys have talent.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, I think going from there, you know, like, that was a creative idea to have different forms and sort of like see how, you know, they compete against each form and how he gets more powerful each time. And the one thing I can say is that, like, I did find his final form to be a little bit disappointing because it's just a bigger version of his last form.
Mm-hmm.
But things got pretty crazy, man, because I mean, we should probably talk about the Super Saiyan thing now, because this is kind of where things really start to get crazy. I mean, we talked about Frieza, we talked about what he's done, and when Frieza killed Krillin, I just remember being there in the room watching it as a kid. I didn't even say anything.
Let me ask you this, because again, because I know you paid attention. The kids in my neighborhood, we paid attention. The reason why it was, you know, obviously it's a big deal. It was horrible. Great character. And you feel like you've lost your best friend when that happened, right? But the thing that sort of hit home for me was I knew the rules. You cannot make the same wish twice. So he was gone. And even before Goku said that, because I think Goku even point blank said it, we can't use the dragon and wish him back because we have done that before. But we knew that going into it, because during the Saiyan fight,
stakes were high.
Yamcha said, Krillin, let me go first fighting the Cybermen, because if something happens to you, we can't wish you back. Let's not risk that. And that carries with you all the way over to the Frieza saga. That, hey, you don't have 9 lives. You've already used your 1. So this is your last one. And you don't know at the time that that rule doesn't apply to the Namek dragon. You can do the same wish more than once. But so you think he's gone, and so did Goku. So that's what pushed him over the edge. And I just think that was a brilliant, perfect storm set of circumstances to get him over that hump. Because even later, I think Goku mentioned, you can reach Super Saiyan level technically, but you do need something to activate it, some kind of motivation that is different from training, you know? Like, this is echoed all throughout the series, even when Gohan went Super Saiyan 2 versus Cell. it took that high level of emotion to get him there. You know what I mean? Even though technically he was already there physically. You get what I'm saying? So
yeah, it's almost as if there's some sort of like primordial thing in your mind that has to break in order for you to.
Mhm. Absolutely, absolutely. So,
It's-
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, just the thing about it too, that it's just like, on one hand you have the fact that the way that Krillin was raised into the air and the way he screamed,
Mhm.
that's one thing. It's horrible. But knowing that, listen, you have to be sick to raise up a guy's best friend in front of him and squeeze your fist and explode him in front of his own best friend.
Yeah,
That's low, man.
yeah, yeah.
That's low.
And you're laughing while you're doing it.
And then he laughed. Listen, I make this joke all the time, Chosen, but anytime, like, I felt like I can go Super Saiyan after seeing that.
Yeah.
Like, if there... Listen, man. When that kind of shit happens, all bets are off. All bets are off. And the way that this guy transformed into Super Saiyan was one of the craziest things I've ever seen. The planet was dying, lightning, thunder. And the way that they animated Goku, like, you could see that, like, his entire body was like pulsating, and you could this is the side of Goku that you don't normally see. Pure anger. But you could feel the guy's rage. And then yeah, go ahead.
Yep. Yeah, it's understandable as well. Again, given that situation, 100%.
Yes.
Because you killed the guy you grew up with. And again, watching Dragon Ball, Krillin was there from the beginning.
Oh yes. It cuts even. I couldn't imagine how deep that must even cut for like someone like you that's seen that show.
Oh man. Huge.
And listen, man, when he turned Super Saiyan, even though like I kind of knew that it was gonna happen, they hinted at it so many times, I still couldn't believe it. And the look on Frieza's face when he sees Goku with that gold hair, he knew he lost. Wait, did I skip past? When did he use the Spirit Bomb? Did I skip past that?
No, yeah, he tried to use it.
Yeah, wait, we gotta go back to that. Chosen, the Spirit Bomb was probably one of my favorite parts as well in this, because that is a crazy power.
Yep.
And be honest, Chosen, be honest. When you watched that part, did you put your hands up?
Oh yeah, I mean I did put my hands up. Figuratively, yes, I put my hands up. Actually, yeah, because finally that thing worked, because it failed against Vegeta initially, and then he got hit by just a light version of it. If he got hit by the full version of the Spirit Bomb back during the Saiyan fight on Earth, Vegeta would be gone.
Oh damn.
But yeah, he got him, and I mean, you knew it wasn't over, but it's finally that thing connected, and
Right.
But yeah.
Yeah, like I said, I apologize. I'm kind of all over the place because this thing in my brain has been sitting there for like 15 years, so I'm kind of trying to remember from like years ago.
Yeah.
Ah, man. It was so satisfying to me. It was so satisfying to finally see Frieza get his ass whooped. Oh, man. How did you feel during the final battle, man?
I mean, it was a big deal, man. A lot of what's going on. A lot of information's thrown at you. you get to finally see what the Namek dragon looks like. Dende reveals that you can make the same wish more than once. It's like a big sigh of relief. Vegeta gets brought back to life, and you can sort of assume his point of view, because imagine, because when you're dead, it's just you're dead. But imagine being brought back to life hours later. The sky is black. There's a big dragon in the background. There are, shock waves in the sky that's being emanated from Goku, who's now a Super Saiyan.
Some crazy imagery.
It's just like, damn, a lot's going on. And, what sort of crystallized it for me was, the course of events and how the tables have turned, because there's an iconic part of the battle where Goku has Frieza's hand in his palm and he's squeezing it, and Frieza is on his knees. And you're like, oh my god. So it's like, at that point, you're like, man, we've done it. So, it was great all the way around, It was great. I just personally, I wish they had kept this same story with the Ocean Dub art and the Ocean Dub voices.
Right.
That for me is the only regret. I don't want to call it a weakness, but it's the only regret. That's just me.
Did you feel that it was a bit too long-winded? Because a lot of people talk about, the last few episodes of DBZ, and they say how it kind of goes on and on and on, and Frieza's like, oh, there's 2 minutes before the planet explodes, and it goes on for like 7 episodes. For me, I never really had an issue with that, because I like build-up. A lot of people out there, because I know there's a version of Dragon Ball Z out there called, I think it's Kai, where they cut out a lot of the filler. But to me, it's not really the same anymore once you sort of like remove a lot of that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think even Dragon Ball Z Kai has a different dub also. But yeah, you're right. I can't even watch Kai, to be honest. I can't, for multiple reasons. But some of that stuff that you mentioned, it is vital. I'm not so sure I minded it in those last 7 episodes. There were times where I did mind it. I can't remember what they are. But again, this is why I say I don't include the second half of the Namek saga, as good as it was. I don't include it as part of that 10 out of 10 score. Mm-hmm. That's just reserved for the Saiyan saga in the first half of the Namek saga. And unfortunately, it just went downhill from there. Yeah, I mean, I understand where they're coming from, but I don't know if I would agree for the way that it ended. But there were moments where I said, okay, well, we are stretching this a little bit. Not too much, but yeah.
Yeah, I think really for me, I never really got too far past Dragon Ball Z as a kid. I watched a bit of the Frieza saga. I mean, Cell Saga. Maybe about, I watched the first, I think the first half of it, and I kind of just fell off at that point, because to me, Goku defeated the greatest villain in the universe, and the storyline kind of just, for me in my mind, kind of just ended there. And from what I hear, I kind of hear that the show really kind of went off the rails in, past that. I am interested to see a bit more, because I hear some stuff about the Buu saga, and I'm like, that sounds kind of interesting. I might actually watch that at some point. Have you watched past Z, and how do you feel about like stuff they have, afterwards?
Well, I assume. See, that's another thing. That's a question that I have actually. So Z spans past. When does Z stop exactly officially?
I want to say it stopped when they rebuilt Frieza, and then Trunks is introduced. I want to say that's around when things started to shift.
It was my understanding that Z lasted past that, past the Cell saga, and ended with the Boo saga, and then GT starts.
Damn.
So
Okay.
if that is the span of Z, then I stopped about a quarter into the Boo saga. It just got silly. So yeah, I mean, I lasted the Cell saga. There were some parts in there that I really enjoyed, but overall, I was already looking for the back door by the time the Cell saga ended. But yeah.
Have you watched Super at all? Because I've heard good things about Super.
Again, I've seen like 2 or 3 minutes of it, and I'm not interested. It's not my thing.
Yeah, to me, I think there's only so many levels and Super Saiyan levels that you can watch, and I really feel like it peaked at Dragon Ball Z, man.
Oh, it did. I mean, that's without question, 100%.
And I have, I can go back and watch this thing over and over again. In fact, I feel like I want to actually watch this again because it'll almost be like watching it through new eyes because I've forgotten so much details of what's happened because it's been so long, But
yeah, you got some catching up to do. Like, you gotta get on Attack on Titan, and that's what you need to get. You need to get on that.
Is it on Netflix? Did they put that on Netflix?
I think it was on there for a while. I'm not sure if it still is.
Because I remember they had it on Netflix and then it stopped at a certain point and I was like, okay, I have to go seek out the rest of the episodes. And I watched a couple on this bootleg ass website. And I just need a good place to watch anime. I don't know if it's maybe is it on like Crunchyroll or like an online site? I gotta find one.
Yeah, I know it's on Crunchyroll. I know that.
I might have to look into that.
You shouldn't really have any problems finding the first 3 seasons. If you do, let me know. And that's as much as I can say. Well, you're recording, so yeah.
Yeah, no, I catch your drifts. I catch your drift. We'll talk. But
let's not go there.
do you consider? I mean, to me, this show is a classic, and it's gonna stand the test of time because every time it's on like TV or something, like I'll just like watch it. It's such an enjoyable show to like watch. But I consider it to be like probably like it's definitely in my top 5 of all time.
See, this is where things get a bit tricky because if you are talking about the totality of the series, I'm afraid I cannot put it in the top 5.
As far as you mean like what do you mean by that?
Dragon Ball Z, again, I cannot, like, if you're asking me where I rank it essentially, and what I'm saying is I as much as I would love to put it in the top 5 or even top 10 of animes, I don't think I can because of the route it went and what it's going up against. In terms of action, as I think that's what we opened the show with, then yes. But we're talking about anime of all time where you're taking into account everything. Story, art.
Yeah.
Then I'm afraid, no. I don't even think that would break the top 10, unfortunately.
Damn, really?
There's some very good anime out there, and for me, story, again, if we're going to rank order everything, which is why I say it's going to take some, in my view, it's going to take some serious point scaling, and just so that everything is fair when you're putting one thing up against the other. But even without doing that, I already know it's not going to make the top 10. It isn't. Its story is nowhere close to 5 things I can name off the top of my head. And if story counts for at least half of the point weights, yeah, easily no, not top 10. You may be top 25, top 30, but top 10 no. No way.
Interesting, but I mean, you know, I think it's fine, but I just don't really. For me, it's like an influence thing where like I feel like at the time like this show has bled into so much as far as like what it has done for like anime in general, just like sort of like well for me it was like I said in the beginning, this is sort of like my gateway into other anime, and.
No, it's my gateway as well. Like I said, even more so than you actually, because I've seen Dragon Ball.
Right.
But you're objective. I know you are. And I have to highlight and underline your question as far as where are you ranking this in terms of greatest animes of all time. And my first question to you is, what do you mean by that question? What are you taking into account outside of the action that you've already alluded to? Are you taking everything into account? Like what? I mean, you see where I'm going with this. I don't, you know.
Yeah, it's a interesting discussion. I'd like to know, like what are your top, of all time? Like, what's your top? What's the top? Let's say top 5.
Top 5 of all time. Number 1 is Attack on Titan, and it's very easy to say that now. But in the same way that we can talk about Dragon Ball Z, I guarantee you 80% of the things we talked about in regards to Dragon Ball Z, most Dragon Ball Z fans aren't talking about. So multiply that by 100 when it comes to Attack on Titan. When I do that review, I guarantee you I'm going to bring up things that, like, you could listen. The average Joe, we've talked about this before, and this isn't me, you know, putting myself up on a pedestal. You alluded to this earlier, where people aren't having conversations like this. There's so much in Attack on Titan that do not lump me in with the next person that says that Attack on Titan is his favorite anime. He and I are completely different reasons. So Attack on Titan's number 1. You've got things like Promised Neverland, you've got Death Note, Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. I've never properly rank ordered it, but if I sat down for a day, I could probably give it to you. But that's what we're aiming at right now. And Demon Slayer right now is currently my number 2.
Damn, modern. Is this a modern show?
Say again.
It's a modern show. It just came out.
Oh yeah. It's going into its 4th season next year. But all the manga's out. The manga's all out. The whole story's out. But even manga readers are saying that the anime show is better than the manga.
Damn.
So yeah. 100%.
I'm gonna have to check that out, man, for sure.
Yeah, it's not even done yet, and I'm saying, I mean, technically Attack on Titan isn't done yet either, but the incomplete products are currently holding the top seed. So that says a lot, you know. So yeah, man. You got to get on it, man, because I know we can have some very good conversations, compare and contrast some things. So again, let me know if you can't find anything, because yeah, we can find it together.
Yeah, no, I mean, most definitely. Chosen One, thank you for coming on the show again. It's been pretty good. I think we talked about most of what I wanted to talk about, and you know, I appreciate having you on. So yeah, guys, please, you know, feel free to comment down below if you you know, enjoyed the video. Remember to like and subscribe. And yeah, I want to try to make this more frequent. It's kind of hard because everyone's scheduling is all over the place, but I would love to come back and do some more anime talk because I like anime. So yeah.
Absolutely, man. Thanks for having me. Great talk.
Yeah, we covered some ground, man. All right, guys, we're out of here.
Later.